Evelyn, we've got some great museums back in Canada and Toronto as well, but I don't think I've ever seen a museum as large as this. How much land do you have here?
This museum covers 3.5 acres, and if you count every individual building, we have 11 buildings on the grounds.
If you were to, is there, do you think, an overall, because you have a lot of school children that come through here on tours and things, is there sort of an overall message that you want them to leave here, having figured out from all of the pieces that are here put together?
Yes, we want them to understand the story beginning back in 1846 from when our ancestors left their homes in Germany to come to Texas and settled here, and the hardships, the good points, everything that they endured to make Fredericksburg the German community it is today.
Well, why did the Germans come here?
The Germans came at the invitation of the Republic of Texas. Texas had just won the battle for independence with Mexico, wanted people to settle west of Austin and north of San Antonio. They sent word to countries back in Europe, like the individual provinces of Germany, saying, come to Texas, there is land for your family. Back in those countries, the situation was not the best. It was political unrest, economic unrest, social unrest, and so they were willing to take this invitation and come.
Wow.
How long have you been here with the museum?
I've been here now for 5 years, but I am a native of Fredericksburg, and I am a direct descendant of the immigrants that came from Germany.
Evelyn, what are Sunday houses?
Sunday houses were built and used by the first settlers because they would move out in the country, and coming back to church on Sunday morning was not as easy as we find it today to jump in the car and go. So they would come in on Saturday morning. They would have loaded their wagons with items and food that they needed for the weekend, plus items they might have made or grown that they could trade for goods that they needed with the general stores in town. Visit with family Saturday afternoon and throughout the evening, and Sunday morning get up to go to church, and then Sunday afternoon they'd head back to the farm. Now later on, when our grandparents, our opas and omas, the first generation out on the farm, became too old, they might move into the Sunday house to be closer to medical facilities.
So talk to me about the process of, because these buildings that are here at the museum weren't all on this compound together. So talk to me about the process of finding these buildings, bringing them here, but also taking a 19th century building, because we saw that one, it's wired for, Eva made a comment about how it's got energy efficient light bulbs in it. They didn't have those obviously in the 19th century. So when you're updating these buildings so that a 21st century audience can walk through them, how do you find that balance?
Well, the Gillespie County Historical Society started in 1935. The first official building, public building in Fredericksburg was the Vereinskirche, which was torn down in 1896 because it was no longer a viable building. So in 1935, they wanted to come up with a memorial to our early founders. That's when they built the replica of the Vereinskirche, and it was used as a library as well as a museum until 1967. It's now totally a museum. Then in 1955, the Kamla House, which is one of our buildings here on the grounds, was either to be sold or maybe even destroyed. And we had an architect, restoration architect who was well known all over the state of Texas, Tyrus Cox, who was on the board, and they came up with the money to purchase the Kamla House. And then in 1967, the Fossil Raiders wanted to sell the Fossil Raider House, so that was bought then. And over the years, other families wanted to donate buildings. The log cabin came to us because Tyrus Cox was the architect when that one was found, and he donated it in 1985 in memory of his son, who was killed in an airplane crash. The Dambach Bazir House, which is the store to our museum now, the entrance, was down where the Hampton Inn is now. And in the early 2000s, they couldn't work it into that architecture. So that home was literally taken apart, rock by rock, and donated to the museum and reconstructed here. The schoolhouse has been donated by another family. The Sunday house was donated. The fire department museum was built by the volunteer fire department when they celebrated their 100th anniversary. So it's just been people who want to tell the story of Fredericksburg who have worked together to keep this museum going. Museums it's difficult to keep them going financially, but we have 2 major fundraisers that help us with the money so that we can make the homes still interesting to our general public, but also have some of the amenities that the public wants today.